right, live in 5, 4, setting up your meeting, 3, live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your indulgence as we spend our Friday evenings in an environment subcommittee meeting. And special thanks many times over to Kristen Flynn, who has been, working nonstop to, produce the reprints and deal with amendments for all the bills that we've been talking about. So thank you, Kristen. So this is the order I want things to go in. 11, initially I was going to say, let's start with 1101, but we just sent out the latest reprint, which may just have a small change in it, but nonetheless, it's relatively new. So we'll review that second, since 1165 is the same as from what was sent out, or the amendments that were sent out earlier. We'll start with that one. Start with 1165, then go to 1101, then 305, and then 1161. Okay. So 1165. Kristen and Delegate Love, could you explain to us how the bill has changed?
Sure. Do you want me to bring it up? It's
sure.
Yeah. So the language for establishing the stream restoration contractor licensing board and the requirements for stream restorations, that's out of the bill. So this is just dealing with the whole watershed restoration partnership. And see if I can find let me get my screen up. Hold on. So you'll see much of, if I do page down. Trying to do it so I can page down quicker, but my page down's not paging down. Well, Delegate Love, we went over the whole watershed restoration partnership piece of this. What I really haven't dive into is those latest amendments. Do we have additional amendments from what we discussed at the last meeting on that part? Do you remember?
There are only a couple that we had talked about to ensure that the specific funds sort of pay what they committed to.
Like in a manner that's consistent with, their current authority.
Yep, there's that. And let me find exactly.
Yeah, like for example, Doug Love, I see on page 5, it says consistent with the requirements of this section, state cost sharing funds may be made available, it's set to the whole watershed fund, et cetera.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the programs have like similar languages added under each of those existing programs.
Yep.
And I think we did go over that, but I just was, I know since you've submitted the language that strikes, the stream restoration contractor licensing board, and I just couldn't remember if there was something additional added to the whole watershed restoration part of it.
There was not.
So that didn't change from our last discussion?
Nope.
Okay. So just all the fund language, just to ensure that consistent with or languages in each of those existing programs.
Correct.
All right, I don't.
May I move the amendments?
In a second, hold on. I'm sorry. So I guess like the new language, page 34 says, I guess this is all sort of what's consistent with what was just said. says the fund may be used only to support actions. Let's see, I'm looking at line 13, including to satisfy match requirements of any federal source, matching, et cetera. So that's sort of related to what we talked about. And then let's see. Then let's see, page 37, line 25, the new Roman numeral 3. Does the Waterway Improvement Fund may finance completely, okay, I remember this about dredge material that was discussed. Any water quality monitoring by the department. So, I mean, I realize that that's not a big change, but I take it that relates to any water quality issue, not just anything that comes up under this bill. Is that right?
So that's under the Waterway Improvement Fund?
Yes.
Yeah. So just to be clear, this is not a new amendment. This has been in there that we've seen before.
Oh, the
And-
underlined isn't new.
No. It is since the bill came in. But
We discussed that amendment previously in an
Correct.
earlier,
No, I remember the beneficial use of dredge material. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So along sort of it of the amendments is that taking out all the provisions with respect to stream restoration, taking out the licensing board, making a few tweaks in the rest of the bill. I mean, in terms of the new amendments. I
Correct.
say new over the past day.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Anyone else have any questions about the amendments? Let's see, Delegate Otto.
Does the amendments clarify that the process for using like ag land preservation monies and some of this others goes through the typical process and the governing bodies that do that? I don't want to circumvent that process.
Right. As we discussed before, and I know Matt Stegman was sitting outside your office
Yep.
today to
I
try
know.
to try to
We
explain
tried
that
to
to
get
you.
together, but
Yep. It doesn't change any of the processes.
so they'd still have to be on the list and go through the county board and this.
Yep,
And
it
go
does
through
not
the
change
whole
any
process.
process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions? Delegate Terrazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry, Delegate Otto, if I didn't quite understand your question, but I just want to make sure you know I still have a bill that provides some of the public notice and some of the other things we talked about last time. No.
Mr. Chair, if I may. That's
Yeah.
not what he's talking about. He's talking about the funding.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarity.
Okay. Any other questions or about the amendments? Okay. Delegate Love, did you say you wanted to move the amendments? Or
If I
someone-
may, Mr. Chair.
Someone made a motion. I forget who.
Second.
Yes, of course.
I'll second it.
There's a second. Okay. All those in favor of the amendments to HB 1165, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, bill is amended. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
No.
Okay. All right. Bill as amended passes. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to House Bill. No, it's not it. 1101. I don't have a reprint, so give me 1 second, okay? I'll be right back. 1101. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Okay. Kristen and Delegate Love, could you go through, I mean, there are a lot of changes from the last time we saw this, so I guess could we go through page by page where things stand?
So I'll come back to the definitions
Okay,
just to show where the scope of the bill is being narrowed to violations that are specific to conditions that are related to non-tidal wetlands that do not have a continuous surface connection to surface water, as well as water pollution control provisions. If the requirement, prohibition, limitation, or condition is hydrologically connected to an ephemeral stream or an intermittent stream, and that's where up in the definitions, we were including defining those terms for the purposes of the bill.
all right. And Kristen or Delegate Love, for those that haven't been involved in the discussion about these changes, could you explain why we're making these changes? Ephemeral stream, intermittent stream, et cetera.
Sure. Kristen, do you want to do that? You want me to do it?
You could go for it.
Sure. So the bottom line with what we're trying to do with this bill is reinstate what was lost at a Supreme Court due to a Supreme Court decision last summer. And what was lost was individuals' ability to sue for pollution to ephemeral streams, intermittent streams, and wetlands. So plaintiffs can no longer bring those suits in federal court under the Clean Water Act. So we're enabling people to bring them, individuals, clean water groups, to bring those suits in state court under our Maryland law. So that's what we're getting at here.
Right, those were the ones that this Supreme Court decision, SACIT excluded for purposes of the Clean Water Act. So that's why we're adding standing for suits brought under the relevant water discharge permit for ephemeral stream or intermittent stream and non-tidal wetlands. Is that right?
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Delegate, I see a hand, Delegate Terraza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, let me say that I really appreciate this bill. I think this is super important. My only question was, it took me a second to focus back in on what's happening here. What are we changing something with regard to the ephemeral streams and intermittent streams, or we're just making sure they're included?
So what we're doing is we're tightening it. Beforehand, the bill was a little bit broader in dealing with certain permits, and it would have encompassed cases that could have been brought in federal court as well as state court. So now we're targeting the waters directly.
Yes. Okay, so this is making sure that ephemeral streams and intermittent streams are included.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And non-tidal wetlands. Yep, you bet.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. And just let's see, maybe if we stay in the definitions section. So let's see, talked about adding ephemeral stream, intermittent stream. I never heard of an ephemeral stream, but now I know what it is. And let's see, in the definition of standard on page 3, section 5, we took out standard that's issued by localities, basically. These are state rules or permits that are issued, right? Because we're focusing on the state ones. Okay.
Yes.
Delegate Otto?
So you're taking out local determinations of this? Is that what you're saying there?
We're taking out the ability that this bill does not give standing to sue for those local determinations with respect to these types of streams or wetlands. It only affects, if someone only has standing to sue the state for any decisions they've made related to them.
I got several acres now that I guess would be considered this, and there after the last month of rain and precipitation that we've had. You know, I had 3 or 4 acres underwater last weekend that normally is farmed and is quite productive, and I'm concerned about the consequences of this bill.
So Delegate Otto, if something is flooded, that's not what we're talking about. So farmland is flooded just because of, you know, an excess rainfall. Can we go back up to the definitions?
Absolutely.
And perhaps maybe Jeremy or Betsy. So if you look here, it's flowing water, a stream flow. Betsy, you could probably explain it better than I could. Mr. Chair, may she step in?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, Delegate Otto. I grew up in South Florida on a horse farm, and we flooded all the time. So I feel your pain. Those are not streams. A stream actually has a visible boundary to it and is defined by this terminology right here is the same as what the U.S. Geological Survey uses. So if you ever play around with maps at all, GIS layers, that kind of stuff, you can actually map these. So they exist in a level that's far different from just a heavy rain event. So your issue that you just mentioned, this would not apply to you at all.
You good, Delegate Otto?
Give me an affidavit saying that that I'm free and clear.
Delegate Otto, I will say it on the floor to establish legislative intent. I would be happy to say that and make it clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the definition, you know, of a thermal stream and intermittent stream, you know, there's that stream connection. It's got to be a thermal stream connected to a stream bed, stream flow. Yeah, I mean, and if you're just talking about flooded area, that's not considered, you know, to be the type of stream that's covered by this. I mean, that's my interpretation. I think the bill sponsor is correct.
Mr. Chair, may I also jump in with one more thing?
Sure.
Delegate Otto, I think also the other thing to remember is that what we're talking about is that people are polluting these streams. It's not just that you have a flood on your field. We're talking that people are violating their water discharge permit by polluting these streams. So what you're talking about, you know, wouldn't be a part of it, A, because it's just a flooded field, and B, because we're talking about somebody violating their permit and polluting into a stream. So I hope that helps.
Well, I prefer the Supreme Court decision over this. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Let's see. So we left off sort of the definition section. I guess we were talking about the definition of standard. Where is that? Oh, that's on page 3. Yeah. I don't know, maybe, let's see. Maybe, you know, Kristen and Doug Love, the language page, if you don't mind going back. Oh no, right where you are. I'm sorry. Section page 3, line 11, which is sort of a key part saying what this bill applies to.
Are you talking where the language was simplified about a person that's meeting threshold standing requirements or?
Yep.
Okay. I think what that was initially spelled out. But that standard, I think, has been developed through case law, and I think this was just a way to simplify the terminology in the bill, that a person that meets this threshold standing requirements under federal law would have standing in civil claims arising under any standard.
Right. Okay.
So who would that include? How close do they have to be? What proof do they have to show that,
It was in the language of the bill. It was the person, if the person suffers an injury in fact, an actual or imminent, concrete, or particularized invasion of a legally protected interest, that's in the fiscal note. The injury must be fairly traceable to the challenged action or conduct of the defendant and is likely to be redressed by the requested relief, or a favorable judicial decision. So that was just codifying what the, constitutional level of, federal standing is.
Okay. Let's see into
The language regarding the
Yes.
association, I'm actually not sure, I think I wasn't involved in those amendments.
oh yeah, about the language about association coming out, yeah.
Mhm.
And then let's see, top of page 4. Line 4. That's against the action of the person against any person. So alleged to be in violation. Okay, and then there's a tweak in the most recent amendments to B.
The notice requirement or,
Yes.
and I think that is just to align with how it's written in the Clean Water Act.
Right, okay.
Can we keep moving or?
Yeah, let's see. Page 4, line 25. I don't think this is new, but it says notwithstanding subparagraph I of this paragraph, a person that meets the threshold standing requirements under federal law may intervene in a civil action brought by the secretary under subtitle 5. Does this apply only to wait a minute, let's see. Does this apply only to cases brought by the secretary to enforce standards, or is it any permit under those subtitles?
Well, I
Betsy?
think,
Oh, sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
well, at first I feel like you gotta just kind of go back and forth with where you are in provisions. So in line 20, saying an action may not be brought under subsection A of this section. So that goes back to the I think it's talking about standing for and civil claims arising under any standard, and then you go to the definition of standard, and that's when you go back to these are standards issued in accordance with those specific state laws.
But I mean, so you're saying, I mean, since 2 is talking about intervention, I don't see it
If the
referenced to
secretary,
standard.
I will certainly defer to Betsy, whoever
Yeah.
else. But I guess my point was is that a lot of this is you have to kind of go backwards to these cross references to get the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to help on intervention if you want.
Yeah, could you, I mean, just my particular question about that section?
Yeah, so where this applies very specifically is when uh, an organization or not a non-governmental entity, community member, community organization brings one of these enforcement actions and you file a 60-day notice of intent to sue. And then the government says, oh, there is a problem here. We, state of Maryland, want to take an enforcement action. That extinguishes the lawsuit brought by the non-governmental organization. But they can then join or intervene in the action by the secretary and the attorney general. So they get to participate in that, but their independent action doesn't happen anymore. So the intervention in this bill, it's actually in here twice because it's for different types of the two different types of actions. So it's a little slightly repetitive in that way. As Kristen was saying, you kind of have to read them together. But I think we were confusing everyone when we had every single thing written out in here with the amount of stuff. And so we just defined more and referred back to existing law. And that intervention was from existing law. It was just added in here so that you didn't have to read those separate pieces of law together.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, to answer
Sure.
your direct question, it
Right.
is just about the standard.
Okay. Could, yeah, maybe I'm being too legalistic, but I see how subparagraph 1 refers back to subsection A, which talks about against a person that's alleged to be in violation of a standard. You know, 1 refers back to the standard language, 2 doesn't specifically. But if I'm the only one who's not clear on that, then standard currently may intervene in civil action by the secretary under, I mean, to me, it just reads a little bit broader. I mean, you know, in terms of the intervention standards. Jeremy, see you raise your hand. Maybe you can answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, I do agree with your reading that subparagraph II is slightly broader and is not actually pointing back up to the standard with the related to the surface water and the hydrologically connected that is in this definition of standard at the top of the bill. It's my understanding that the intervention right is broader than the availability of bringing the citizen suits and actually being the filer. And so if we were to limit it in this way, similar to standard, the way it's limited above, we would be taking away existing rights in terms of intervention.
So you're saying it's current law? What is being said in Roman numeral 2 is current law?
Correct.
I see.
I stand corrected. Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay. So if it doesn't expand to anything, then I'm good. Okay. Then on page 5. I mean, the middle part there, section line 11, seems to be procedural stuff. I'm sorry, I'm just reading parts of these, I guess, for some of this language for the first time. Let's see. Okay, so in terms of relief, says except as otherwise, let's see, this is line 16, page 5, except as otherwise provided by the subtitle, any other relief provided under a standard. And I took, I guess 3 is out. So I guess relief would be related to what the standard required to begin with? Is that sort of the way to read that? Betsy?
Yes, to simplify thinking about this, it's really, there are sort of two causes of action here. One is a violation of a permit, discharging in violation of a permit, which would usually be exceeding the permit limits.
Mhm.
Or the other one is discharging into intermittent ephemeral or the isolated wetland without a permit. Those are the only
Hmm.
two things that, so what can be ordered is fix the problem or get a permit.
Got it.
So
Okay.
just to kind of simplify the,
Yep.
what it means
That
there.
makes sense. Okay. Thanks. I know there was some change. I mean, not exactly the biggest part of the bill, but let's see, for section F down the bottom of that page about cost of litigation, substantially prevailing defendant if the plaintiff's claim was frivolous, unreasonable, groundless. Okay, I guess that's consistent with federal law, is that right? But I know that change was made to conform with, I think, some other law, but I'm fine with it unless anyone else has a question. Let's see. And I think I had a question at the bottom of page 6, line 3, subsection 3, as to whether that granted anything new. And I think I forget who replied no, but that this, like I was wondering, with the same rights as an interested party or aggrieved party under Clean Water Act, that doesn't grant anything new. Is that right? That's not already set out in the bill? Just wasn't sure what that was getting at, but
Mr. Chair, are you referring to paragraph 3 that's on the screen right now?
yes. Yes.
And under 1904 or 1903, a little bit farther up.
1902. No, I'm sorry. Go back. Kristen, it's further down. I'm sorry. It is, yeah, the bottom of the page that's on the screen right there. Subsection 3.
Yes, that's existing law.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you all for your explanation. Does anyone else have any questions about this? I appreciate all the work that everyone's put in.
Mr. Chair, if you're ready, I'm happy to move the amendments.
It's fine with me. I'll second them. So all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Bill as amended.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Duly
Can you
noted.
hear me now?
We can hear you. We hear you well. Okay, duly noted, Delegate Otto. Okay. Okay, bill passes as amended. Kristen, can we go to HB 305?
We can. I gotta bring it up. So the bill came in initially requiring MDE to develop the outdoor lighting standards. I think we've talked about it a little bit. We have amendments that would instead require the Maryland Green Building Council to update guidance or develop guidance for the purchase of outdoor lighting fixtures in consideration of recommendations regarding light pollution and color temperature published by the American Medical Association. However, the State Highway Administration is not subject to any of the guidelines developed, updated under the bill.
Okay, Delegate Tarassa? Delegate Tarassa?
Oh, my apologies. My internet's going in and out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, does the Green Building Council already have standards for the purchase of outdoor lighting fixtures that relate to this?
I can't remember. I looked into this before. I'd have to look back through my file.
So what we were changing it because who was doing it before? Was it State Highway
So
Administration?
it's gonna have the Department of the Environment, which they don't do that now. And so I know the bill sponsor talked to DGS and Maryland Green Building Council was good with this. And let me see, I can maybe look, or I gotta stop sharing my screen to look at my
Yeah,
past.
and that's okay. That's okay. I mean, we're kind of last minute here anyway, so I was just curious how they end up in there, but that's fine. Thank you.
Oh, well, you mean it's how the Green Building Council ended up? I know that there was initially, it was, Chris, I know you just said this, but remind me, MDE, which was responsible for developing these outdoor lighting standards. And MDE said it doesn't do that. So then the Green Building Council, I guess the sponsor reached out to the Green Building Council, which said they could develop them.
They were good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It surprises me because the issue here isn't whether the lights are green enough, it's that they're disruptive, I think. Although I'm real tired, so I'm not positive I'm right on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the language says regarding light pollution and color temperature published by the AMA. So I'd assume that, you know, the disruptive nature would be covered, but I'm not sure. Well, let me go through folks who have their hands up. Delegate Guyton?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'm as hungry as anybody here, and I know my husband is too, but I am so disappointed at the amendments to this bill. I really liked the bill, and it feels like now it really doesn't do anything. I mean, that's my take on it. So yes, that's my take on it. So if somebody wants to convince me it actually does something substantive, then you know, I'd love to pass it, but it seems like we really took all the teeth out of it. And yeah, I already told you the story of my district, so this is disappointing.
Okay. Let's see. Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So who's impacted by this bill? Is it new buildings or new multifamily dwellings, new commercial buildings? I don't know the scope here. Is it prospective, or are we trying to make changes? I see state highways not part of it.
Well,
Guidance.
go ahead, Kristen, go ahead.
It would be establishing guidance for purchasing outdoor lighting fixtures. So that would probably be specific to, you know,
Upgrades and new construction.
Yeah, I mean, I think state agencies, excluding state highways, local jurisdictions, I mean, whoever is responsibility for installing outdoor lighting, which I think maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is mostly public entities. State highways was excluded because they had particular concerns about whether these, you know, the criteria that are specified here are consistent with public safety. So, you know, the sponsor and state highways negotiated this exclusion. But otherwise, I think it would it would apply to other, I'm just looking at the fiscal note. Let's see. Here you're talking about lights on state parks, trails, well, not highways. Local roads. Kristen, does that sound basically right?
Well, the fiscal note's not drafted to this guidance document that would.
Right,
The
I know, I
fiscal-
mean, SHA is specifically excluded.
Oh, gotcha.
How will
mean,
this
you know-
impact surveillance cameras that we want to identify the low life that are breaking into our cars in the parking lot and things like that? I mean, is that going to impact that in some way?
Delegate, I don't know, quite honestly. Is there anyone on the call who does know? And, I guess because of this question, I should say we should hold this bill, but let's go through the rest of folks who have their hands up. Delegate Guyton, is your hand? Oh, no, okay.
You know, it was, I was just going to actually, again, I don't have the sponsor. I don't remember who the sponsor is, but again, I was so excited about this bill. I can't vote for these amendments. And I think if there's any work that can be done on this bill to actually improve it, what I was going to say is that there already are, dark skies guidelines out there. So I don't know why anyone, and I don't know much about Maryland Green Building Council, would need to develop those and then not have the State Highway Administration follow them. So I would love to look at this, see if there's any way to amend it to make it do what the sponsor originally intended.
Okay. Let's see, Delegate Ruth?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just, in reference to who this impacts, Delegate Otto's question, it looks to me like it says state down on page 3. It says, subject to paragraph 2 of the subsection, state funds may not be used to install or replace a permanent outdoor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it looks to me like it's anything with state funds, not.
That's the second part of the bill. Yep.
Okay.
That's a restriction on the bill also includes a restriction on the use of state funds to purchase lighting unless it meets this criteria, an existing law,
Right.
and then an additional one that's established.
Right, but it looks to me like these guidelines that are being developed in the first part really only apply to state funded things, or, I mean, I don't see where they're applied anywhere in this bill to private construction.
They don't look to be, but it's just a different, it's just drafted in a different,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
this new subtitle, outdoor lighting standards. So there's not really,
I guess Delegate, and I don't know the answer to this, but to the extent that localities get state funding for lighting, in whole, at least in part, they could be affected, but I just don't know.
Right.
Does this come out of the Empower funding that we just expanded to include my core electric cooperative?
I don't think so. That's my uneducated guess, Delegate Otto. I don't think Empower funding would be used for this type of lighting since we're talking about state funds. But Delegate Morgan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Delegate Guyton. I would just look at like on page 3 where they talk about lighting and things like that used to illuminate field of play at sports facilities. Well, that could be any county park where you use program open space money. Because that would technically be, unless I'm crazy, I mean, that would be state funds used to work on parks and things like that. And then, are they going to be able to have enough lighting to actually, provide the necessary lighting for the kids playing sports?
Yeah,
I think,
okay.
I mean, the bill's restrictions wouldn't apply. Like they could still have brighter lights at sports fields is what I think that was intended to do.
Well, listen, we have a lot of questions about this bill, so we'll just hold it. Okay. Okay, next, the last bill. HB 1161, Dorchester County Delegation, Sanitary Commission. Kristen, could you discuss this and also sort of the new amendment which has come in, which anyway, we can discuss.
Yeah. I don't have my bill in front of me. So pull it up. Okay, so the bill authorizes Dorchester County to enact a local law to abolish the Dorchester County Sanitary Commission and establish a Department of Public Facilities and Services. The bill transfers various powers from the Sanitary Commission to the County Council. And by transferring, you know, from the transferring the powers from the Sanitary Commission to the County Council, we did get an email from the state retirement and pensions where they thought clarifying language could be added. Let's see. To provide that these employees may only continue participation in the employee's pension system if employed by a participating employer of the system. Because there's language that allows an employee of a sanitary district that was employed on the date that the authority is abolished, that they would transfer without any loss of salary, retirement benefits, insurance benefits, etc. And I think the retirement, state retirement just wanted to ensure that they were employed by a participating employer of the system, because I guess not every local employer would be participating in the system.
Okay. And I guess so Kristen, the delegation hasn't seen this language, so we could approve the bill with this amended, but subject to the delegation providing us an updated letter.
We would need an updated letter. And then the delegation also submitted an amendment to change the effective date of the bill.
Oh, right. Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, if this clarification, the subcommittee wanted to move ahead with it, we would need Dorchester County to approve the change. Or if the subcommittee wanted to move the bill along, we could communicate with the Senate just to see if this issue needs to be explored further.
Okay. Delegate Otto?
I'd move the amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do you want, Delegate Otto, when you say the amendments, you're talking about the tweak that the delegation requested about effective date and do you not want the state pension language in it?
I would include the pension language too, myself. I think they'd be satisfied with that. That sounds fair to me.
Okay. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. And then let's see if there are any other questions about the amendments or the bill, but I mean, with these amendments. Okay. All those in favor of the amendments, say aye.
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 Opposed? Bill as amended. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Opposed? Bill as amended passes. So I guess, Kristen, you'll let the delegation, you'll ask them if they will sign off on this new pension and employment language.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll send an email over and see what we can get.
Okay. All right. Well, we are done. Yay. at least for before crossover. We'll be back together next week, I'm sure, but any questions or comments?
Good job, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. Okay. See you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
Bye.